Good morning. This is Jamey from Stonemeyer Games, and I'm here as I am almost every Wednesday. Today is March 23rd. I'm here to share Stonemeyer Games news, to answer any non-spoiler questions you have, and to discuss some random topics. Um, yeah, we have a bunch of random stuff today. In fact, I just thought of one other thing that I should bring up today. Let's start off with this. Normally, like I said, I do this every Wednesday, and I think I will do this next Wednesday. However, next Friday is April Fool's Day, and we have a little something special planned for April 1st. So I think next week, what I'm thinking right now, let me look at my calendar. I'm thinking next week I will do a live cast as normal on March 30th, and then I think I'll also do a live cast on April 1st. Yeah, I'll put a little, maybe not a full one, but I'll put that on my calendar. Yeah, let's plan on doing that on April 1st. And just to let you know, we won't have an e-newsletter next Wednesday, but we will have one on April 1st. Yeah. Good morning, Navia. Thanks for joining me. Just wanted to give you a quick heads up about that so you don't cut off guard. But next week, I guess there's no reason that I wouldn't pop on live next Wednesday anyway, so I'll repeat that news then. So what is going on? At Stonemeyer Games, I've been pretty busy with some game design stuff, a lot of proofreading, and some play testing of various products. So I know that's as vague as I could possibly say, but I love doing those things in addition to all the regular kind of marketing and business stuff I do. A lot of preparation for future stuff, and there's always some sort of fire to put out and figure out. I think at this point we have successfully shipped, or our fulfillment centers have successfully shipped all Libertalia pre-orders. I don't think all have arrived yet, but I think they have shipped. And if you don't have a shipping notification, please let us know, because you definitely should have one by now, or you should at least have received your pre-order. If you pre-ordered in early March, if you just pre-ordered yesterday, then you wouldn't have received it yet. But it should ship very soon. Good morning, George, Molly, Mike. Thanks for popping in today. Good to see you all. Let me know if you have any questions. I will just ramble about my random topics until I see any questions. We did have a vet appointment the other day for my two cats, Biddy and Walter. Just a little checkup to make sure they're doing okay. Just an annual checkup. And Biddy's diabetes is doing pretty well. And he had blood drawn to check on that, which he hates. He also had his ear cleaned. He's had apparently he has a minor infection in his ear, and he's been generating a lot of earwax, but the vet cleaned it out. It looks much better now. But he was very ashamed of this for the rest of the day. And Walter's in good health. Walter's in great health. They are 12 and 15. Biddy is 15. Walter is 12 right now. Yeah, and they're doing well. Chad popped in to say, am I excited for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've really enjoyed the Marvel and Star Wars Disney Plus series so far. I think Moon Knight is the next one to launch, right? Moon Knight is a new Marvel series that goes live, I think, or it starts next Wednesday. So I'm looking forward to checking that out, and definitely looking forward to the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. Good morning, Suzanne, Nicola, Daniel. Thanks for popping in today. We are watching right now, speaking of things that we're watching, we watched The Batman, only the second movie that we've seen in the theaters over the pandemic. Where we watched The Batman at a kind of an off time where there were very few people in the theater, and we really enjoyed it. It was quite good. Very dark in terms of like dim lighting, but there are a lot of really memorable moments about the movie that I thought were really well done. I would compare it, if you haven't seen it, I would compare it to the movie Seven. Not quite as gory as the movie Seven, but it has a big mystery to it, and some other elements that are similar to the movie Seven, but with a caped crusader in the form of Batman. What else were we watching? We were watching the TV show Murderville on Netflix, which isn't really about murder at all. It's an improv show, half scripted, half improv on Netflix. And we're also watching Top Chef Season 18 right now. Oh, and we watched the movies Deep Water and Fast and Furious 9 over the weekend. They had their moments. You don't expect much from a Fast and Furious movie other than to have some, pure popcorn entertainment. And Deep Water was an erotic thriller, which isn't something that I would normally watch, but it was interesting to watch it. It was an interesting movie. I'm curious if any of you watched some movies over the weekend. Have you watched The Batman? Have you seen these Fast and Furious 9 is not a new movie, but Deepwater is a fairly new movie. So if you watch either of them, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Piotr says, greetings from Poland. Any specifics on the new viticulture expansion? The only specific that I've really given so far is that we're planning to start to talk about it on April 13th. And right now I'm actually debating doing a little bit different rollout than normal, a different reveal, where on April 13th, I may actually reveal the full rulebook, or at least talk openly about everything in the rulebook. And then the reveal will be some of the like zeroing in on specific components and showing you some examples of those components and telling some design stories behind them. So I'm thinking about giving you a lot more information up front and then unraveling specifics and stories from day to day for the next like 7 to 10 days. That's what I'm considering right now. Let me know what you think about that method. That is the topic of a blog post that I made on last Thursday, and about kind of our release schedule, our release methods. And I also talked about, what was the blog post yesterday, or on Monday? I talked about, segmentation, which sounds like a terrible thing, but it's actually a good thing. Segmentation is when you segment different customers, in this case by region, so that if you offer a sale for, say you offer a sale to that's only available for U.S. customers for whatever reason, maybe you have a bunch of inventory in the U.S. that you're trying to get rid of, that you don't also include customers who aren't in the U.S. on that email, because that might be annoying to them to hear about a sale that they can't get. So talk about segmentation in that Monday blog post this week. Matthew is joining us. He says he normally isn't available to come out to join us live, so good to have you, Matthew. And Cynthia is joining us from MeepleSource. Good to see you, Cynthia. And my friend Miles. Miles asked, do I have any early Survivor thoughts? Yeah, as always, I'm definitely enjoying the new season of Survivor, season 42 this season. And we're watching it week to week, so my memory isn't good from week to week, but I'm generally really enjoying it, enjoying some of the interesting choices that they have this season. And I think they picked a really good cast of characters this season. Even like the first few people to leave were characters that I would have gladly watched for most of the season. And they're already gone, and they've already left a bunch of other remaining really interesting characters. So yeah, Miles, I don't have any specifics, and I don't want to spoil anything for anyone who's watching it, but I am enjoying it so far, and I look forward to watching tonight's episode tomorrow. Mike says, what are my thoughts on Tidal Blades 2? Kind of the adventure dungeon crawlish style cooperative version of Tidal Blades. He says, and what do you think of the depth of the story that they have done? Should more games dive that deep into the lore? I don't want to tell other games what to do. I don't know. I don't really have an answer to that, Mike. But I think it's really cool that they've dived this deep into the Tidal Blades world. They have an RPG. They've taken the characters from the core game and brought them into a sequel game that's completely different. I think that's really cool. And I think if you have the right artist / world builder, kind of like Jakub Rozolski for Scythe and his 1920 plus universe, Mr. Cunnington, that's a husband-wife team, David and Lena. They are wonderful artists and wonderful world builders. So if you have the right person like that or team like that, I think it is a great way to build around a world. I haven't backed Tidal Blades 2 yet. I most likely will, because the game looks really cool. I like cooperative campaign games. My only hesitation is not to do with the game itself, but just that I have a lot of other cooperative campaign games that I backed on Kickstarter or pre-ordered somewhere that have not arrived yet. And I even have one that we haven't even played yet that's here, The Legends of Sleepy Hollow. I have that and we haven't played it yet. So I just feel like I have a glut of them. And but I will probably back it because it looks awesome and I love the Tidal Blades world. So yeah, most likely I will end up backing it. Tim says he's wearing the same shirt today. This was the it wasn't last year. It was the 2020 champion t-shirt, not the 2021 shirt. We change our champion t-shirt every year. Arne says, this week I saw some pretty negative comments about Stonemaier Games and where it is today in the comments of one of your blogs. They were respectful, but I'm sure it's still heavy for you to read stuff like that about your company. How do you cope with that? That's interesting. Yeah, you must have been reading an older blog post because I don't think I saw any really, truly negative comments recently. But yeah, every once in a while there are some there's some pretty tough comments to read. And they're not always respectful. In fact, if a comment is truly like on the level of harassment or I don't know, there's a line where I'm okay with a comment being on the blog or not. If it's if it's really, really nasty to me or to anyone else in the comments, I don't allow it. So you're probably only reading the respectful ones. I'm curious actually what blog post this was, Arnie. But yeah, it is heavy to read those things. I think I have to be in the right space to really learn from strongly negative comments, and it's helpful if they are at least constructive in some way. Uh, but I can think of one blog post in particular. It might be the one that you're talking about, where it was it was a blog post that I posted. It was about where I was trying to elevate Black, Indigenous, and people of color voices in the game industry, in the game community. And I was really trying to do something good in the post to share share wonderful people with other wonderful people. And the comments kind of assumed the worst. They assumed something that didn't even occur to me when I was writing the post. I think they assumed that I was trying to do something really bad, and I think they came with the weight of a history of me maybe not doing the right thing in terms of what I've said at times, where I've made some mistakes and had a lot of things to learn in terms of how we can elevate underrepresented and marginalized people in the industry. Something that is really important to me and passionate to me, but I messed up in terms of how I've gone about that in the past. And so the weight of that, I think, carried into some of those comments. And it was tough to read them, tough to navigate that. But it was also, I think, I don't know if I would say it was the right thing, but I tried to respond to them in a constructive way. I tried to hear them, I tried to listen to them, and I tried to approach them with an open heart, basically. Yeah. Navi says, I have a question about Between Two Cities. Will you be restocking or remaking the promo city tokens that are not included in the core boxes? We don't have any plans to. There was a time a couple years ago where a couple of people asked for it, and I was like, okay, let's do a poll to see how many people really want these, because we have to make a minimum of 1,000 sets if we do that. And the interest was really low because you really don't need them for the game. And so we don't have any plans to do that. If the interest was ever there that we knew we could sell 1,000 sets, then we would do it. But I have not seen that so far. Yeah. Let's see. Eric says, any chance on a Red Rising expansion? I think there is a decent chance at it, but our plan is to not really think about it until book 6 is complete. So we're going to, and we being Alex and I, and our artist Miles, who I think is watching this right now, we're going to read book 6 whenever it comes out, and we're going to decide what the next step is to do with Red Rising. Do we make an expansion to the core game? Do we make a completely new game set in that world, like a sequel, kind of like what Tidal Blades 2 is doing? We don't know yet, so I'm kind of waiting to see how we feel about it after book 6. Yeah. Brandon says he just played Dune Imperium because I saw on your top games video and I loved it. Honestly, one of the best solo experiences as well. I love how tight the game is, and the 10-point victory condition reminded me a lot of Euphoria and the Scythe's endgame condition. That's true. I hadn't thought about Euphoria as a comparison to Dune Imperium, but you're right. That's actually, in Euphoria, you're trying to get 10 stars. That triggers the end of the game. In Dune Imperium, you're trying to get 10 points, and that triggers the end of the game. And you can still get a few more points in Dune Imperium. Thanks for the recommendation. Well, thanks, Brendan. I always love when people discover games through my channel, my game design YouTube channel, and end up loving them as well. That's wonderful to hear. My video this past week was about action selection systems in games. I had a lot of fun doing that because I love clever action selection systems that are built into the user interface of the game. And so I couldn't limit that to 10. I went over 15 of them in the video from this past Sunday. Cliff says that he's loving Libertalia so far. I'm happy to hear that, Cliff. And Justin says, am I a fan of the Cities Skylines, the video game? I'm not familiar with that, Justin. I don't play many video games at all, though. He says, I've been streaming that lately and will be honored to name a neighborhood after Stonemaier. If you're all right with this, what would you like the name to be? Yeah, well, I'd be honored for you to do that, absolutely. What would you like the name to be? I don't know, some play on Stonemaier would be fine. Yeah, I mean, maybe just something with Stonemaier, then like Stonemaier, Stonemeierville or Stonemaier Villa. I don't know. Would that work? Yeah, I'm just honored by the idea, Justin. Thank you for offering that. And Justin, when he's talking about streaming, I believe he's talking about the Room 51 Twitch channel. Justin, feel free to correct me if that is incorrect. Big Dan is here. He says, if you enjoyed Murderville, see if you can catch Murder in Successville, which is the BBC original British version. Much better in my completely biased British opinion. I have heard, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, like many great American shows, they originate in with even better sometimes British versions of those shows. And I did hear that this was one of those cases. I really like Will Arnett, so I really enjoy the show, the American version, but I want to try to find the British version to see how it's similar, how it's different, what they do with it. Murder in Successville. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Thanks, Dan. Tim says he is excited for My Island by Reiner Knizia, along with a My City roll and write. Yes, I saw that this announcement was the other day. I loved My City, and Reiner Knizia is coming out with a similar legacy game called My Island. And I don't know. I'll have to ask Megan about it, but I think we both really, really enjoyed My City, and so I'd like to give My Island a try as well. It uses hex-shaped polyomino pieces instead of square polyomino pieces. Par says he has an early spring. What's weather like in your town? And Par's in Sweden. He says it's still not that warm. So far, we've had a very rainy week this week, but in St. Louis, it's been it's been warm for the last like week or so, and just rainy the last couple days. But yeah, pretty nice so far. I had a wonderful day for disc golf this past Sunday, where it was bright and sunny, but not too hot. Yeah, it was like ideal weather for disc golfing on Sunday. Molly says, I was wondering how much thought you put into the player colors in your games. I always find it interesting seeing which colors people like to play as. I'm on Team Yellow. I'm personally Team Red. I love to have red in our games. And I would say the colors we choose are partially based on like the color palette for the game itself. Like in Wingspan, we went for more, I'm blanking on the word now, kind of a more natural palette for Wingspan. Euphoria went for very bright colors, but we always try to keep color blindness and low lighting in mind. We don't always succeed. I've heard some complaints recently about the purple and the blue on the front of the Libertalia cards, so it's something that we can definitely always improve. But yeah, but color blindness and low lighting is something that we generally keep in mind when selecting the colors. Yeah. Nicola says, given the opportunity, would you ever go on Survivor yourself or a different TV show? I would. So I've thought about that in the past for Survivor specifically because I love the show so much. But if I don't eat on a regular basis, I get really, really bad migraine headaches. And so I think I would be out of Survivor within 24 hours, I think. Unless it was a version of Survivor where you get 3 good meals every day, but they're never going to do that. And so, no, I don't think, I think I would be pretty miserable on Survivor, even as happy as I would be to be on the Survivor TV show. Also, yeah, the combination of food and sleep. I can't see how they possibly sleep well on Survivor. They're sleeping on essentially, I think, bamboo and sand, maybe some palm fronds, but it does not look like they sleep all that well. I'm guessing they sleep purely because they are so tired. But if I don't sleep well, if I don't hydrate well, and I don't eat well, I get terrible hair wall migraines. And so, yeah, I'm tempting, but I think I would be miserable. Dominic says he's checking in on his wedding day. Congratulations, Dominic. That's awesome. I hope you have the most wonderful wedding day today. Wednesday, March 23rd, 2022 is Dominic's wedding day. Congratulations. I hope it goes well. Matthew says, this live stream has become one of the highlights of my week. Love your games and your content. Well, thank you so much, Matthew, for chiming in with that comment. I really appreciate that. That makes my day to hear that. Tim says he was surprised to not see part 1 of Tidal Blades not available as an add-on in the Kickstarter. I haven't been able to find that game available. That's interesting, yeah. In some ways, I kind of like that. I like that they've separated the two. I see a lot of Kickstarters where they combine a bunch of different games together into one campaign, and the logistics of a reprint and restocking a game are very different than making a new product. My guess, Tim, would be that they don't see a reason to wait to make more Tidal Blades. Like they probably already have a print run in progress right now. Or maybe they're not making more. I don't know. But if they're making more of that now already, then they would have to artificially delay it until the Kickstarter fulfillment for part 2, the sequel that they're currently kickstarting. I'm a little surprised they don't have copies available, or that there aren't retail copies available. If you check directly on their website or in the FAQ, they must have something about it on the Kickstarter. I'd love to know more about it if you look into it while we're live here, Tim. Tony's running late today, but he's here. Tony's almost always here for the live cast. George says Jurassic Park Legacy is crushing it on Kickstarter. Am I backing it? I saw that. So no, I'm not backing it yet. I saw it and I just glanced at it a little bit, and it looked. So let me. Is it actually a Legacy game, or was it a game that had Legacy in the title? Every now and then I see Legacy in the title, but right away it doesn't actually look like a Legacy game. I'm fine with it either way, but I always find it like a little confusing when they put Legacy in the title, but it isn't a Legacy game. I don't know what to do with that. That confuses me, and I tend to like then move on quickly because I'm like, oh, why did you pick this word? This word means something now specific. But I could be completely wrong, and it could actually be a Legacy game. So let me know in the comments if it actually is. Michael says, how can I get one of your Stonemaier dice boxes that you use during your Rolling Realms live play? He says his family loves the game, plays it every night. So this is something that was gifted to me a long time ago by Andy England. So it's like England, but with a U instead of an A. I don't know. I mean, Andy gave this to me years and years ago. And so maybe during the time of Euphoria. And maybe he makes them, maybe he crafts them for someone, but in general, this might be the only one that exists as far as I know. Yeah. But I'm glad you're enjoying Rolling Realms. I did a live play over the past weekend, and the next one I do will be next Wednesday. I'm shifting kind of to an every other week format, and every 9 to 10 days. So I'll start that one on Wednesday. I'll do Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then I'll skip ahead to the next probably Friday and do Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then skip ahead a week and a half and so on, just to catch a bunch of different days of the week that way. Yeah. Chad says, am I for or against Oxford commas? I've recently switched from against them to for them. I am very much for Oxford commas, to the point that I recently bought a t-shirt that indicates my support of the Oxford comma. I should have worn that today, but I'll wear it in the near future. You'll probably see it on some videos coming up soon. Justin says, hope all is well. Slightly random topic. I'm starting to plan some board game tattoos. I love board games and I love tattoos. I'm wanting to get a Stonemaier game tattoo. I want to try and get your permission and the artist's permission. What is the best way to ask that and the artist? Thanks for asking that, Justin. I'm honored that you put a Stonemaier Games related tattoo on your body. I think so. You probably don't need that much of a permission to do it, because you aren't, even though you're using an image as an inspiration, it's going to end up looking very different, I think, on your body than it does wherever it's printed. But when you make that selection, feel free to just email me at jamey@stonemeiergames.com if you have any doubts, and I'm sure I'll just say, yeah, go ahead and make this. But yeah, just in case, you're welcome to email me. Yeah. I think there's already, I think I've only seen one Stonemaier Games tattoo out there, and I'm forgetting what it is right now, but I vaguely remember there being one out there, and the person didn't ask for permission. That was totally fine. I really don't, I was just honored to see someone want to put something Stonemaier Games related on their body in that way. Daniel says, not sure if this was discussed already, but have you mentioned why Libertalia did not come with a player aid? Not sure why so many companies choose not to provide one. I would think this would help getting the game played, especially when it's been a while since a group first learned the rules, available actions, etc. Yeah, Daniel, I thought about that. It's a good question. I thought about that during the creation process for Libertalia, and I decided against it because of how simple Libertalia is, and because on the game board itself, there's a little key that kind of tells you just what to do every round. It's such a simple game that's why I decided not to do it in Libertalia, because of the simplicity of the game. The rulebook is really short. I mean, you're basically opening it up to a single page spread, and you get all the rules. So that's essentially what the player aid is, it's either player aid or a reference guide, one of the two. But the player aid in this case is printed on the board itself. That is what the player aid would need to be in the game. And on the last page of the rulebook too is essentially the same player aid there as well. So we did include it in the game, but just not as you traditionally think about it, as like a separate card to put in the game, and you have the little player aid on that card. But yeah, I think it just depends on the game, the weight of the game, and whether or not you're able to integrate that sort of content into the board or into the back page of the rulebook. Yeah. David says, have I taken a look at the TFM Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition Kickstarter for 3 expansions? Am I backing it? I'm not backing it, but nothing against. I haven't played Terraforming Mars in quite some time. I rarely get to the table, and I don't actually own it. So no, I'm not backing it for the expansion. Mihir says, I'm curious to know if Ark Nova was a Stonemaier game that, besides it being more pretty, although I think Ark Nova looks great as is, how different would it be mechanically or graphically? In other words, what changes would you make to the gameplay? I have a big video actually coming out about Ark Nova this weekend. I don't know if I would change all that much, Mihir. I really like pretty much everything they did with it. There might be, I don't know, a little bit of streamlining to it. I probably just would remove the negative. Actually, this is what I would do. I would probably remove the negative like attack abilities and just make the friendlier version standard. That's probably the one change that I'd make to the game. Arn says, the blog post I was talking about was your pre-order blog this week. I refer to the comments about how Stonemaier Games' glory days are behind you. Oh yeah, that was a little tough to read. Yeah. That was it was a good, yeah, that was a little hard to read those comments. Yeah. I don't think they were strongly negative, but you never really want it. I mean, it's hard to hear. However, I think there were constructive things to come out of those two comments. It was just two comments, and I think there was good constructive things to come out of that. It was a good reminder to continually hold myself accountable to my mission of bringing joy to tabletops worldwide. Yeah. Paul says, last week I asked about Charterstone and planned it over weeks. I'm sold and ordering it today from your site. Oh, awesome, Paul. Question is player count. What would you recommend for a first game player count? Well, you kind of want, so the thing that I say about Charterstone, Paul, is that I would pick the player count based on players who are excited to play a 12-game competitive village building legacy game with you. Because not everyone's up for that. And I would not recommend going into it with like 6 people who are wishy-washy about it, instead of maybe say 3 people who are really excited about doing that with you, or even just you. It can be played solo, so you could just play it yourself if you don't find anyone else and you are really excited yourself to play it. That is completely a viable way to play it. So I think it's more about the player's interest in doing that and having that 12-game commitment than it is about how many players exactly. Yeah. Susanna says, the Board Game Hot Takes podcast just did a favorite action selection podcast and had some crossovers with you, and Scythe and Tapestry were on their list. Oh, that's awesome. Pure coincidence. I think I filmed mine a few weeks ago, but I'll have to check out that podcast. The Board Game Hot Takes podcast. I will do a quick Google search for that so I don't forget. I think I subscribed to that podcast, but thanks, Susanna, for the heads up. Susanna is our retailer relationship manager, and Susanna is back from Reno, back from the Gamma trade show this week. Susanna, thank you, and Alex and Joe for kind of forging and forming some of those amazing relationships at Gamma last week. I look forward to hearing more about that. Michael says, are the skyships of Galecrust wind-powered or steam-powered? I'm almost certainly not writing Libertalia fanfic. What are they? I'm answering off the cuff for that. Obviously, I have not thought about exactly how they're powered, but I don't think it would be steam. I'm going to say that they're wind-powered. Some sort of combination of wind and wind magic, I would say, keep those ships afloat in the air in Galecrust. David says, what kind of games do you wish there were more of? I'm always looking for good roll and write games. There are a lot of good roll and write games to choose from right now, David. That's a great question. I don't know if there's like a general category of games that I'm looking for more of. I'm looking for fewer games, but fewer great games. And that's across all categories. I'm not looking for publishers and designers to pump out games. I don't think prolific is the thing that I'm looking for from a game designer or a game publisher at this point. I'm looking for the best of the best. And I know that's highly subjective, and games can't always cater to me, absolutely. But I'm looking for, I'm looking for fewer but really, really great games that really, really hit home with me and that I want to play over and over again in different ways. Yeah. Allie says, I'm curious, Allie is one of our playtesters. I'm curious how much of a lead time the Automa Factory generally gets between you submitting a final design to them and you submitting the final design to Panda. Does Automa iterate on their design during your development process, or do they get started once the final multiplayer design is complete? Great question, Allie. So I stay in touch with Morton at the Automa Factory, and David to a certain extent too, throughout the multiplayer design process. And at a certain point, I say, okay, I think the design is taking shape pretty well here. You can start to work on a rough framework. But I don't want them to waste their time if it's still evolving. And then once it stops evolving even more, I say, okay, this is a good time for you to really start to work on the design of this. And then usually how it works out then is that when I am finalizing the design, the multiplayer design, they are really ramping up the playtesting process, the blind playtesting process for the Automa version, the solo version. And but in the end, I try to give them as much time as they really need because I want there to be a really, really high quality solo version in each of our games. So if they need extra time on the back end, I am totally fine with that. I try to put a little bit of time pressure on them so they don't just take forever, but they don't really do that. But yeah, you typically have. Typically, I'm finding that they're on top of it so much that their Automa isn't really extending the schedule. They aren't extending like how long it takes for us to go to print, especially since a lot of the work that they do happens when our graphic designer is working on typesetting the multiplayer files, which takes a long time. Yeah, great question. Miles says that he loved the Marshawn Lynch episode of Murderville. He's obviously biased because Marshawn Lynch was a Seattle football player. Do you have a favorite episode so far? I think we actually may have laughed the most yesterday during the Annie Murphy episode. Annie Murphy is one of the actresses on Schitt's Creek, and she played it very subtle yesterday. Well, I say yesterday. It was the episode that we happened to watch yesterday, but we laughed a lot. She did some really funny things. Justin says that Room 51 is correct. That's the Twitch stream that he was talking about for Cities Skylines. And he says, I'm taking that as you're leaving it in my court, I'll do it with a twist on a New York City neighborhood. Totally fine. Absolutely. He says, instead of Sheepstead Bay, I'll name it Stonemaier Bay. That would be awesome, Justin. Yeah, that sounds really, really cool. And thank you for doing that on your stream. Sounds like Susanna is also Team Red. We were talking about player colors earlier. And actually, I'm a little behind on questions. So let me keep going on questions, and I have some stuff to show you real quick. Let me do chocolate of the day real quick. I had a craving for dark chocolate yesterday, so I popped over to the grocery store and got some dark chocolate with sea salt, and it really did hit the spot. Very, very good. What is your chocolate of the day or your indulgence of the day today? Matthew says that Blue Peg, Pink Peg did a review of Libertalia Winds of Galecrust this week, and it got me really excited for the game. Yeah, I'm glad that happened, Matthew. I just saw. I think they sent me the link yesterday, and I added it to our website. But I appreciate them taking the time to review the game. George says, any updates on the Wingspan nesting box? Will the first print run be very limited due to the shipping costs? It will be a little limited, yeah. I mean, we're not trying to artificially make too few, but we definitely don't want to make too many of the nesting box because of the super, super high freight shipping cost. We have decided at this point that we are definitely making it at the same time as the next Wingspan expansion, and that you'll be able to either buy the expansion by itself or the expansion in the nesting box. But at the beginning, there will not be an option to just buy the nesting box because the price would be almost just as high as it is with that expansion in the box. So, and I think both of those products will probably launch sometime this fall. Maybe we're eyeballing October at this point. That's kind of what we're looking at. Yeah. Justin says, I heard Elon Lee has worked with Jeff Probst on Survivor gameplay and challenge design. I've heard that as well. Yeah. This is the Exploding Kittens guy. He says, would you want to collaborate with the folks at Survivor someday? I would love the opportunity to design like a challenge for Survivor. Absolutely. That would be an amazing thing to do. They are so good at challenge and kind of twist designs in the show. And I think I actually submitted an idea at one point, some sort of a point system. Of course, I'm a game designer. I wanted a point system. Basically, I think the thing I submitted, and maybe I just blogged about it, was that past votes cast for you can potentially hurt you later in the game. So if you are voted against early on, those early votes might come back to haunt you later. But yeah, it would be quite an honor to design something for Survivor someday. Absolutely, and I'd love to even go to Fiji someday and see the Survivor stuff they do there. I have gone to the Survivor live finale. I did it, I think, in season 38 or 39, and that was one of the highlights of my life, to actually go and witness the finale. It was incredible. Brandon says he's in the process of creating a game where the main mechanisms are push your luck, resource collection, and tableau building, and the card design is kicking my butt. Yeah, card design is tough. A lot of respect for games like Ark Nova and Terraforming Mars that have a wide variety of cards. And Brandon, I can absolutely relate to that. Card design is very difficult for me as well. Any suggestions or encouragement for card design when there's such a large volume? I find it helps the most if you go theme first for card design. If I go mechanism first, I really struggle. I do often maybe look at other games that use card mechanisms and I get some inspiration for them, but really zeroing down on unique cards where the theme is reflected in the mechanisms and vice versa, it really helps for me to go theme first. So like with Ark Nova, I'm guessing the designer took a bunch of animals and was like, okay, what mechanisms make sense for each of these animals? And his ideas, Matthias's ideas, sprung off from there. So I would recommend going theme first. And also give yourself permission early on in the design, Brandon, to not have a bunch of different cards. It's okay to have a bunch of similar cards early on and to build a variety later as you get the core foundation of the game right. I found that works for me at least. Corey says his sigh, the playmat is out for delivery now. The very last thing I need before having all content and upgraded components. Can't wait to play it fully blinged out. That's awesome, Corey. Make sure you share some photos in the Scythe Facebook group once you get the fully blinged out version of Scythe with all those different promos and accessories and third-party accessories, expansions. Yeah, that'll be cool to see on the table. George clarified that Jurassic Park is actually a legacy game. I did not know that. Thank you for clarifying that, George. He says there are 12 scenarios where you construct your own custom park and story. Well, I want to check that out. Let's pull that up right now. I believe that's on, let's see, Jurassic Park Legacy. Is it on Kickstarter? It's a Funko Games. I see that. Let me see if it's on Kickstarter. Okay, launched yesterday. I am not finding a link to it yet. Here we go. Okay. All right, interesting, very interesting. This company has done some great things, Prospero Hall. Y'all have to check that out. I did not know that this was a legacy game. Not that that would necessarily be the selling point for me, but it intrigues me a little bit. So I will definitely check that out. And I think this looks like might be the first Prospero Hall Kickstarter campaign, which is interesting. Yeah. Justin says, "Do you think Murderville could make a good party game?" It definitely would be in the style of a party game where some people have a script. In fact, well, I would say this is kind of like the like host your own murder mystery type games in a box. That's essentially what it is because it's scripted plus improv. So in a way, it kind of already exists, Justin. But for people who enjoy that format, I could see it being fun. I don't know if I've ever been drawn to do one of those murder mystery things myself. Daniel says, I've seen some board games get their roll version. What do you think about that? Would you eventually do that? Their roll. I don't know what ROL is, Daniel. I don't know if that's an acronym or a misspelling. Let me know what ROL is. Sorry, I'm sure it's obvious and I'm just missing it. But yeah, let me know what that acronym means. Nicholas says, how many Stonemaier games are being donated to Geekway's Play and Win? And would you recommend it to other publishers? I think we give Geekway free reign to take whatever they want because they're here in St. Louis. I love Geekway to the West. So I think they're taking around or getting around 24 boxes, which is way more than we usually give to a Play and Win. Usually we give between 1 and 3 boxes or products, depending on how big the event is. But yeah, we're giving a lot to Geekway. Would I recommend it to other publishers? Absolutely. Absolutely. I think Geekway, Play and Win for any convention is a win-win-win for the convention, for the attendees, and for the publisher, for reasons that I detail on my blog many, many times over. But yes, I think it is one of the few true triple wins there for everyone involved. I highly recommend. I recommend conventions having Play and Win system sections. I recommend also that conventions invest in it. They don't just rely on donations from publishers. I recommend that attendees request that and have fun at Play and Win sections at conventions. And I highly recommend that publishers donate at least a few games to Play and Wins or offer a discount to conventions who are willing to buy games from Play and Win sections. Oh, Peter. Okay, Peter clarifies that Andy is still making stuff like my my dice box here. And he says that he also makes incredible crokinole boards. So that's great to know. Peter, if you happen to have a link for that, let us know. Let us know in the comments here. I'd love to share that if Andy is still creating stuff. I'm so grateful that he made this beautiful dice tray. I've been using it for so long. It's a great dice tray. Simon says, "Can you Hey Jamey, you watch TV as you eat?" Yes, that's true. Yeah, we watch usually a short show at lunch and a longer show at dinner. Do you have a game set up on your dining table like us as well? We have a gaming table. So we have stuff on the top of the. We have what do they call it? Boards on the top of the table, and you lift off the boards and have stuff underneath. So usually, if we have a campaign game going, it's underneath the table. Currently, we don't have anything under there, but we usually try to keep the top of the table pretty clear, unless we have a game that we know we're returning to game day after day. Yeah. Tim says, "I'm definitely getting a Stonemaier tattoo before I'm done. A lot of joy has come from your games." That's really cool, Tim. Yeah, feel free to share those tattoos. I'm not a tattoo person myself, but I think it's neat if someone would get a tattoo related to anything Stonemaier related. Matthew says, "How do you determine when a game design is ready for blind playtesting? What metrics do you use, and has that changed over time?" It has changed a little bit over time. I used to wait until a game was really, really functional, and when I thought it was really, really fun, because I didn't want to subject anyone to a game that was neither fun nor functional. I wanted that combination of the two for blind playtesters. Now, sometimes I might test something a little bit earlier when it's functional enough for me to commit to writing a rulebook, because that takes quite a bit of time for me to write the rulebook for blind playtesters. And when I'm having at least some fun with it, but maybe I really need that outside perspective, I might then turn to blind playtesters. There's a product that I'm working on now where it has taken a long time for it to be truly fun and functional for me. And I think maybe I entered it into blind playtesting a little bit earlier than I should have. But I still got some great feedback from it. So I don't necessarily regret that. But yeah, it has changed a little bit over time. I would say go a little bit earlier into blind playtesting now than I used to. Justin says that he was talking more about the tattoos. He says, "I have two games that I've gotten permission from the designer and the artist. It's one of those things where I'd rather ask for permission than forgiveness, especially given the semi-permanence of a tattoo." So totally understand that. Yeah. So if you want to get a tattoo of tapestry, it sounds like, Justin, feel free to let me know what image you want to use for it. And I'm sure I will grant you permission for it. And if you want me to talk to Andrew, the artist, I'm happy to do that as well. But yeah, that's very, very cool. David says, "Do you think that Survivor has over-indexed on the game theory in the last two seasons, like with the prisoner's dilemma choices? I've liked the clear choices in previous seasons." That's an interesting question. Even in game design in general, like clear versus opaque choices in games. I was just listening to a game design podcast about open world video games and clear versus opaque choices in video games right now. I don't know. I like when Survivor experiments. I like when they keep the contestants on their toes, and I like when, I think my least favorite things in Survivor are when a group just ends up voting together and they never have any reason to stop voting together until there's no one left. That's only happened a few times, but it has happened, and I like anything Survivor puts into the mix to prevent that from happening. Yeah, I'd say that's my answer to that, David. But it really depends on the exact advantage that they're given to break that mold. Yeah. Daniel says, "I understand why you would come to that conclusion for player age, but the reality is not all people are able to read the board from upside down, and that's why they have the back of the rule book, Daniel, for that same purpose. So you put the back of the rule book on one side of the table, you put the people can read the text on the other side of the game board, and then it kind of solves that problem." He says, "I'm having trouble seeing the negatives of including 6 extra cards." That's fair. I mean, yeah, I guess there's no real downside to including 6 extra cards. I just don't, in Libertalia in particular, I don't see the need for player aid. And I hear that you were saying otherwise. I definitely hear that, Daniel. But I'm letting you know why I didn't do it, which is that I didn't see a need for a player aid in Libertalia. And I think maybe a big part of it is in the original Libertalia, there was a player aid built into the player mats, and I don't know, it didn't find it all that helpful. There was something that just didn't resonate well with me, and so I think maybe that it's subconsciously that I didn't feel the need for it because of my experience with the original Libertalia. Yeah. But I agree this is a core part of accessibility. If a player aid is necessary, and I don't think it always is. I definitely don't think it always is, especially in a game like Libertalia where you kind of do have a game manager saying, okay, everybody, we're doing daytime. We're doing dusk now. I don't necessarily think you need a player aid for each player. But in general, I think you're right. It can be helpful. And the one reason that you might not include cards for this purpose is if you have already maximized, if you've used all the cards on a card sheet. I don't think we necessarily did that with Libertalia. I can't remember offhand, but card sheets, like for the size we use for Libertalia, come in sheets of 54. And so if you have maxed out that card sheet or multiple card sheets, it actually is a problem to add additional cards. But I don't think that was the case for Libertalia. I just did not see the need for it in this case. But I'm sorry that you're struggling with it. And I think if that is a struggle for you, you could just take a photo of the little player aid that's on the board and just print out a little cheat sheet for each player. But I think easier than that is putting the back of the rulebook on one side of the table and the game board on the other. But again, great feedback. I appreciate you sharing that feedback. I think it's valid feedback and an important thing to keep in mind for games. Even the games that seem very simple could benefit from a player aid. Yeah. Scott says, random question. The Altama in Red Rising is Tull Altama. I get the Altama part, but where does the Tull come from? That is a reference to some of the characters' last names in the Red Rising series itself. Yeah. Chad says, he's talking about card design, individual card design, and he says that it helps him to use Excel or like a Google spreadsheet, that type of thing, to balance out those cards. I was focusing more on unique card design, but I agree, Chad, having some sort of formula or spreadsheet to get the numbers right for unique cards is really, really helpful as well. Okay, David says, my one Libertalia card came badly bent, damaged, and I'm now waiting on a replacement. What does the replacement parts look like in the industry? Do you order spare parts in bulk to have on hand? Is damage replacement a common occurrence generally? Yeah, David, great questions. So at Stonemaier Games, we have replacement parts helpers in each of the major regions where we have a bunch of replacement parts requests. Typically, replacement parts requests are two different categories. One is the game arrives with broken or missing components, which only happens to like less than 1% of all games. But when you're making, I mean, we've made, I think, 4 million units so far of all products. So that adds up quite a bit. So I think we've probably had around 20 to 25,000 replacement parts requests over the last 10 years. So they fall into that category and the category of someone's dog eats a piece or someone spills wine on the game, something like that. And we're happy to fulfill both types of requests. As for the industry, I think everyone does it. I think everyone does it a little bit differently. Oh, and where do the parts come from? Whenever our manufacturer makes any print run of a game, they always make some spares, and they generally do this so that say Panda makes a new print run of Viticulture, and something happens to some of the glass beads. They don't meet quality control. They have then an extra 100 units usually of these glass beads that they can use to kind of to fill that need. But Panda really has that happen, and so typically they have 100 extra sets that they send us, and we use them for replacement parts. Yeah, that's pretty much how it works. Yeah. George says, I wouldn't tattoo myself, but if I would make the print from your champion t-shirt directly on his chest with ink. That would be a big print there, George. Molly says, red is her second favorite color choice. I'm happy to hear it's my favorite. That's what she says she's using in Libertalia since yellow isn't available. And as Molly points out, each of the airships in Libertalia is a unique design, and so yeah, one of the airships is a unique red airship in Libertalia. Let's see if I missed anything that I wanted to talk about today. Although I want to talk about your questions too. Any topics that I had pre-written down. Oh, games that I played recently. I played Scout from Oink Games recently. I finally played Anno 1800 last week, and I played Rolling Realms, like I mentioned, over the weekend. Focused a lot on game design this weekend, so I didn't actually play anything over the weekend, I don't think, other than Rolling Realms. And oh yeah, the other thing I wanted to show you, we are working on, last week, you might have seen this in the Tapestry Facebook group, we are working on a neoprene playmat for Tapestry. A double-sided neoprene playmat, because the board is double-sided for different player counts. And I got some great feedback in the Tapestry group. We've decided, so this is essentially just a replica of the Tapestry board. We've decided to make it a little bit bigger, still rectangular, but a little bit bigger, to include the arts track and then include full spots for all the different cards, because one of the great things about neoprene mats is they make it really easy to pick up cards. And so last week I was corresponding with artist Andrew Bosley, Andrew, and we are working on that right now. We'll go into print with a kind of a full big mat for Tapestry, and don't worry, even if we do make another expansion for Tapestry, it will not impact or disrupt the board that we're making here. Yeah, I'm excited to do that. I got some great feedback on the Tapestry Facebook group about that neoprene board. Simon says, make you re-implement another game like Libertalia. Yeah, I don't know if we will do another second edition of a game, a new edition of a game like Libertalia. I think that was a very special case for us to try, and I don't know. I have to be honest. It's been a little jarring and maybe a little scarring to deal with the response from people who are so attached to the original art and aesthetic of the game. We tried to do something fresh and new, and I know it's maybe just a vocal minority, but it was not a welcoming. The Libertalia community was not as welcoming as I anticipated for us to spend the time and effort and love that we did into making a new version of Libertalia. I am really happy with the final product. But it definitely made me question if we would ever consider doing a new edition for another game like that in the future. Yeah, I don't know. It was not a great experience and continues to not be a great experience. Fortunately, people seem to be having a lot of fun playing the actual Libertalia game, those who gave it a shot. And I really appreciate those who gave it a shot. I want to focus on them. Yeah, I really appreciate it. And it's just been kind of a learning moment for me in terms of making new editions of games, of older games. Nicholas says, how many Wingspan player guides with extra cards does Stonemaier Games fulfill to original purchasers? Well, we don't give them away, Nicholas. They're on our web store. They were on our web store for a while, and we started getting so few requests, and I think we stopped even selling it, because what we found is that people were getting a little bit confused. They'd buy Wingspan on our web store, and then they'd also buy the Swift Start guide, even though they didn't need it because it's included in the game now. So I don't know how many requests our replacement parts helpers get now, because that would be the way for people to buy it. They would do it through replacement parts. But I think it's very, very rare. Yeah. Nicola says, you posted on Instagram about doing some of your signed cards. Will some of them be going back into the Stonemaier Games Europe shop at some point? They will, Nicola, definitely. Yeah, in fact, the batch that I signed, so I signed a batch 2 weeks ago. Those are going to Europe right now. And the batch that I signed a big batch of cards yesterday, those are going to the US store. So I think the ones headed to Spiral Galaxy are already on the way there. They should be back in stock soon. And if you sign up for a back in stock notification there, you'll get a notification when they arrive. We're going to make sure that all the web stores are stocked with them. I think the other stores, Australia and Canada, have them, but if not, we'll send some there as well. Simon asked, is the Tapestry playmat 2 millimeters thickness? It may even be thicker than that. It feels like 3 millimeters thickness. It's very nice and thick. Yeah. Barry says he loves Libertalia and his family does too, except no one wants to be mean to each other. I'm trying to get them to realize it's part of the game and just embrace it, but any tips on how to get them to not be afraid to take that cards and not feel bad about it? I think the key, Barry, is that there's very little take that in Libertalia that is directed towards a specific player. Rather, it's just what happens like when you play a card. And so I think that's the style of take that I like, where I'm not targeting Barry. I'm not targeting anyone. I'm playing a card, and that card happens to target Barry or Barry's character or something like that. So I think maybe that's the way to get over it and to try it. Also, it's possible that you might be able to play Libertalia definitely on the calm side, because that's the nicer side, And there might be a configuration of cards, maybe even quite a few cards, that aren't particularly take that in Libertalia. And Barry, I don't know, you could propose something on Board Game Geek or in the Libertalia Facebook group where you say, okay, I've removed cards 1, 15, 20, and 27 because those are a little bit too take thatty, and we're playing with the other cards. That would be totally a feasible way of playing Libertalia if that is a happier experience for you and your family. I'd be kind of curious about that actually, now that I'm talking about it. Joshua has a nice note about what I just talked about for Libertalia a second ago. He says, I'm sorry for the Libertalia feedback you've been getting. And again, the feedback is good. I like the feedback. I like the constructive feedback. But I think the outright dismissal of us trying to do something new and fresh has been what's kind of hard about it. And also for Lamaro, I like, it was wonderful to work with Lamaro on the art and the world building of this game. I think he did a wonderful job. I don't know, some of the comments, it just made my heart hurt in case Lamaro happened to read any of them. Yeah. Anyway, Joshua says, especially the criticism on the art, which I think looks fantastic. I hope the artist isn't too discouraged. I really hope so too. I honestly hope that Lamaro didn't read those comments because they are the least constructive comments possible. Yeah. David says, thanks for the insight on how the replacement parts system works. Less than 1%, lucky me. I'm sorry that you had that happen, David. We never want anyone to need a replacement part when they get a game. But I think, fortunately, David, in even 99% of the 1%, even if you've received like one card that's damaged or a few cards that are damaged, usually the game is completely playable while you're waiting for replacement parts. So let me know if that's the case in your copy. I would bet that you can still play your copy. I think you were talking about Libertalia, even though you have a damaged card. That should not prevent you from actually playing the game. That's the case in the vast majority of replacement parts requests. We are happy to make the requests. We will make them. We'll make them quickly, but you can almost certainly play the game in the meantime, even without that part. But prove me wrong. Maybe that's not the case with you, David. If you are, that is a truly rare occurrence. Yeah. Suzanne says that she loves Libertalia and she has a review and a podcast coming soon about it. Thank you, Suzanne. I'm glad to hear that. And thank you for making a review about it. Chris says, do you include any signed cards in the Geekway games? No, the signed cards are kind of a separate product category just available on our web store. But if you go to Geekway, I'm happy to sign anything. Yeah, bring anything you want. And I am happy to sign it. I usually try to remember to bring a marker to sign stuff if people want me to there. Tim also says, Winds of Galecrust has been a blast to play. People who love the original can play the original. And that's a great point, Tim. I think that's one of the weird things that's been happening with me about these comments, that I'm not taking away the original Libertalia game. If someone really, really loves that more than the new version, the old version still exists. And I think that's been like the most bewildering thing to me about the whole process. Yeah, well said. Tim says... sorry, Facebook goes, keep scrolling. He says, I saw Ben Stiller is playing the lead in a stage adaptation of The Shining. People chimed in to say they're ruining The Shining and not another remake. The original is always there. Most people won't travel to the West End for the play. Let people enjoy new takes. I totally agree, Tim. Yeah, I want to invite innovation and newness and fresh takes on things. It does not take away if the original continues to exist as it does in 99% of the cases of pretty much everything that's remade or refreshed, then you can choose between the two. I love having the choice there. It's like if someday they remake Back to the Future, they make a new Back to the Future. I will welcome that because I love Back to the Future and I can always go and watch Back to the Future, and I would gladly watch a new fresh take on Back to the Future. Yeah. Chad says, did you see the new game that combines Vincent Dutrait and Andrew Bosley's artwork? Looks so interesting. I did not see that. No, I'm really curious. Vincent's art is for the real life and Andrew's art is for the dream aspect of the game. That's really cool to use different artists for real versus dream states in a game. That's really cool. David says it's just one card and he can play with that. Okay, good, David. I'm glad that you weren't in that very rare case of those who need a replacement part and can't play the game in the meantime. But I play red, so I would miss out on having the red brute. Corey says, community outreach has been a fun new aspect of board gaming that I'm getting into. He went to a local high school to help a social worker trying to get an after-school program going for the students. We had 30 show up last night, and they loved it. That's awesome. That's really cool. And Corey, your involvement in that and doing that is really, really cool as well. He's meeting with a local library director on Tuesday to get a board game program started. He's going to help another library in a few counties over in May to help them demo their new board game program. Corey, that's awesome. That's incredible. In case you don't know, we do have a library program at Stonemaier Games where libraries can buy games from us at essentially a retailer discount so they can stock their shelves with it. And we also do support especially low-income schools that don't have the budget to pay for games, if they're using games in classrooms or using them for after-school programs. We have a program for that too. It's on our BIPOC support form, but really, while it is our BIPOC support form, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, I welcome anyone to mention invaluable organizations that support those who can't otherwise get games typically, or wouldn't otherwise be exposed to games. Especially if they're like Corey and they're taking the time to bring those games to people and to teach those games. That's incredible. So feel free to fill out that form with any such program or organization. For libraries specifically, libraries have budgets for things like books and games. And so they have a different library program, or we have a different library program for them. But yeah, that's really cool, Corey. Nicholas says, your 9 tips for getting your game published is awesome. Do you have tips to publishers for dealing with reviewers? I do, Nicholas. I would say that's everything that I would say about that is on my reviewer. And I wouldn't even say they're tips because I think I don't want to tell another publisher what to do, but I can say what we do. And I'll post a link in the comments below to my blog post about that topic. You've probably read it, but yeah. Chet says the game is called Unconscious Mind. That's the one with Vincent Dutrait and Andrew Bosley's art. That's really, really cool. Oh, Corey reminded me that I already sent them a copy of Wingspan and the students love it. Oh, that's really cool. That's great. Yeah. All right, I think we're at 11, a little after 11 o'clock here in St. Louis. Thank you all for joining me for this conversation. As always, I love the feedback you share. Whether or not I agree about player aids, I'm still happy to get that feedback. And yeah, thanks for joining me. I will put this up on YouTube. If you have any other comments, feel free to post those comments there. That's the best place for me to see them. Enjoy your chocolate of the day, your treat of the day, the games that you play this week. And I will see you next Wednesday and probably next Friday as well for April Fools. Take care. See ya. Bye.